Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Omnifactory. And in the last one, we got our DML situation moved over from the old base into our new platform up here. I'm really glad we got this big project done. This was looming for a long time. I knew I was going to have to do this eventually. And yeah, I'm glad I got it sorted out. So we made polymer clay, all using processing arrays. This has been off for quite a while as I'm still using the backlog of polymer clay I was using before, or making before down there. So this will turn itself back on once the original backlog empties itself, and it'll start using this stuff. We also got a few more building touch-ups finished around here. We upgraded the crafting CPUs a bit more. And then we got our draconic energy ball situated at the end of the last episode. One quick thing to mention before we begin this episode, I was finishing off these quests at the end of the last one. We were able to access this Mote of Omnium quest, which meant that I had to hold 64 Motes of Omnium. I just assumed that you couldn't fluid solidify the actual mote itself. I'm already solidifying the ingots, and we have a full drawer of ingots, but I just assumed you couldn't do the Omnium, so thank you to the comment who reminded me that you can actually fluid solidify those, so I got the quest for that. And that unlocks the Infinity Catalyst for later on. So yeah, on to what we're doing today, which is going to be some more tech progression. We're going to be moving over some more of the machines from downstairs. And the first thing I'd like to tackle is the processing arrays. So as you can see here, I've started laying out a bit of a outline for how I want these laid out. And I have them in sections of 9. So obviously there are 3x3 multi-blocks. I know that you can share walls, but I mean, these casings and that are basically free anyway, so I'm not really worried about saving resources. This makes it a lot easier to configure the inputs and outputs, especially when you have to have more than a few input buses. And sometimes you have to deal with waste byproducts and things like that. It just makes it a bit more tricky to set up nicely when you're sharing the walls and you have less access to the sides. I've also added this second layer as well. I think this bottom layer is going to be for on-demand processing. So I've counted out that we're going to need 12 processing arrays for on-demand use. Things like the lathe, the wire mill, assemblers, a compressor, alloy smelters, things like that. That's all going to be in this bottom layer. And then the top layer I think we're going to use for passive things. So we're going to passive a lot of things in processing arrays. Mostly things like heavy plating. All of these platings most likely are going to be passived in a processing array each. And these are for the microminers. So I'll probably have to set this up on both sides as well. Maybe even add a third layer. But let's not get too crazy before we even start this first. Yeah, so let's start just with the bottom layer. The reason I wanted to raise these off the floor was to have power running underneath, so we can have our power cable running along the floor like this. Or you know what? Maybe what we can do is, I mean, since cables are basically free at this point, what we can maybe do is hide this under the floor, or nest it into the floor one block, and then we'll have it come up to the energy input here, and then maybe we will just raise the floor like this at this point here, just to keep it all nice and neat, and we'll have the wires hidden that way. And then this way they'll be like on a bit of a pedestal as well. And even like the output buses, we can maybe have the output bus in this middle slot and then just stick an interface here and connect all the cables underneath. And that way you can just see a nice clean 3x3 processing array. Yeah, I think that sounds like a plan. So I'm going to just make a start on moving what we've got. Actually, no, I'm going to leave what we've got there. We'll set up new versions and then just transfer the patterns over once I get things up and running. And some of these, like the cutting machine, for example, I'm still running at EV. This was back when I first set these up, these processing arrays, but we can easily upgrade these to maybe LUV by now. Perhaps even ZPM. But I'm not sure again about our power situation, so I'll have to just keep an eye on that and be a bit careful. Although for the on-demand things, it shouldn't be too bad. It's just when we start to set up passive processes that consume a lot of power, especially if we go with the higher tiers. We might end up running out of power in that case. So yeah, things like this for the stem cells are going to go in the second layer, which is just things that run passively. Same with the wetware boards and like electrolyze. In fact, we don't even need this anymore. This was for electrolyzing tungstate and scheelite ore or dust. We don't actually need this anymore since we can fluid solidify. But yeah, all these passive ones will go in the second layer, and then I'll move over all of these ones to the bottom layer. So I'm going to make a start on that just now, and then I'll I'll come back when I've made some more progress. Alright, so I've got most of the templates set up. I'm just in the process of moving over some of the recipes. And I'm noticing some interesting challenges I'm trying to sort out here. So one of the main ones being the inputs, and I'm realising that I don't have enough input slots. Originally this chest was in the middle. However, if we need like fluid input or something like that, it's not really ideal, since the fluid will block one of the interface slots and we won't be able to have an extra side on the chest for the input. So I have most of them labelled as well, and I think I'm going to have to move this chest to the front and have the input on the top middle block. The only one I've moved over so far is the wire mill, and next up is the cutting machine. However, that has an extra 2 interfaces worth of patterns to fit in this one chest, and I don't think that's going to work. So I'm going to have to add a second input. And I think this wire will be okay because we can conduit facade that, and then maybe we'll just have this layer extend out to this block. It's not really ideal. I would have liked to have inset all this one block, but I don't know. Maybe we'll just have this pillar here like jut out a little bit. I don't know. I think I'll figure that out later on. But yeah, this sort of template should work. And then with the wiring below, I tried to keep it as nice and neat, and I put a CEF for every 3 processing arrays. And then we have it connecting all through the center area here. And then I'll just copy that on both sides, and then hopefully this will all fit above the other processing arrays. Actually, will it? Now that I have... No, we may have to raise this up 1 or 2 blocks more. So I'm glad I never put in all of these templates. I think this floor level will have to be raised 1 more block. But yeah, I've got a lot of moving ahead of me. This is going to be a huge project to move all this. Okay, so I managed to move and upgrade most of the essential processing array tasks. And it does look a little bit messy, spaghetti right now, but trust me, this is all able to be covered with conduit facades. And also on the second layer, instead of putting the output bus in the middle, it would have been blocked by this draconium wire. I've decided to move it over to the back right of the processing arrays. So that's what I'm just filling in right now. I find it easier to, when you're doing like the same of something like this, to do it all at once. Or do the same thing on each one all at once. So like set all the energy input hatches, then all the output buses, then flip them all the same way. It minimizes the risk of missing a step like this. Again, it's not completely foolproof. It's likely that I've messed something up, but we'll run into that soon enough. So yeah, so far I've got a wire mill, a cutting machine, lathes, a cluster mill, compressor, alloy smelter, and a assembly machine for conduits. This one here is going to be for SMDs, or these 2 are going to be for SMDs, but I think eventually we're going to passive SMDs, and we'll do them in single block machines over in that room over there. But for now, I'm just going to copy the recipe over to this processing array and do it on demand. Most of these machines I'm running at ZPM, although I haven't upgraded a few yet, like the lathe. The cutting machines though are all ZPM, and the wire mill is ZPM. This is noticeably faster, this wire mill. But yeah, there's still a few more to move, and then we can start tearing down most of this. And I was going to put a macerator in, but when I went to move it, I checked this, and there's actually 0 recipes that use the macerator here. I may just leave that out until we actually need one. I'm not sure what was there before. I'm pretty sure I didn't set it up with no patterns. That would have been a bit silly, but... And I'm debating whether I want to put this compressor for heavy plating. This was originally for the higher tiers. Actually, why is this here? This we can fluid solidify. Yeah, I'm going to take that out of there. Yeah, this was originally for the heavy platings for the micro miners. However, I think we're going to passive each one of these, so I might just leave this here for the time being, and then move it over when we're passive in the micro miners. Okay, that's all of the essential processing array on-demand tasks moved over, and now it's demolition time. And all cleaned up, at least for the time being. these ones we're going to keep and yeah, move over when we set up different processes for them. But yeah, that's much cleaner now, and that's one other thing off the list. And now I'm just going to tidy this up with some conduit facades and make it look a bit neater. Alright, that's the bottom half all nice and cleaned up with some conduit facades, and I raised the floor one more as well. Everything is all covered up. Looks really clean and nice now. And I still have to do the same for the top, but I'm going to wait until I fully configure those. So now that this is finished, I'm trying to think what the next course of action is going to be. Ultimately, we are working towards the creative RF source. However, to get there, we're going to need a lot more... well, for a start, we're going to need another Heart of the Universe. It's like 380-ish Hearts of the Universe, which means 380 tier 10s. And each tier 10 requires multiple tier 7 and 8s. So I think it's wise to set up systems to autocraft all of these microminers, which is a lot. And that is going to take multiple episodes at least. In order to do this, there's a lot of different processes, like for example, Draconic Fusion. And we're going to have to set up gregtech machines, like I mentioned, and a crafting area as well. So I think now that this is designed, we can easily expand this when we need to add some more processing arrays. We just have to like set it up and then put the input buses and output buses, and it's good to go. So I want to set up the next room for gregtech machines that we're going to use for auto crafting, as well as crafters. So that is going to be in this room here. So I'm thinking we do like a similar sort of design over there, where we have 2 different levels and then a central walkway. So we have gregtech machines on like the bottom layer, for example, and then maybe a row of crafters here for passive components. So I want to get that designed so that we can at least sit down all of the machines and the energy, get all the wiring in, just so that it's easy to expand when we're going through each of these recipes. So the way we're going to tackle this is basically just to like start at this recipe and then say, okay, we need advanced microminer guidance systems being passively crafted, which means we need EV sensors, which means we need a crafter. And then we'll also need the assembly lines, and that's why I want to have like all these different rooms set up, and then we'll be able to expand them when we're going through the recipes to set up microminers. So next up is I'm going to take some time and design this room here, and then I'll be back when I've got something else to show. Alright, so I've got this room mostly figured out and all wired up, and I've even started moving some of the processes over just to try and get rid of some of this thing down here, and even I was able to even get rid of all the ZPM line down there. And then I started moving all this stuff upstairs as well. So some of the things I've moved over already is the passive circuits. So I think I've got tier 6, 5, 4, 3, and then 2 and 1 is on this part here. I'm just about to finish setting this up. And I think I quite like this design. It's a lot cleaner. I'm using a lot of robot arms and conveyors with filters instead of inner I/O conduits. And it's not the most space efficient thing. Like, probably the most space efficient would be to have it on both sides as well. But I think it looks a bit cleaner like this, where everything faces the front and we have the drawers showing the items that each line produces, or each column. And I've moved over Scenarium here. I'm just passively crafting this because these input items are free. So more or less the rule is, if the input is free, like since we're fluid solidifying it, I just let it run basically forever. There are some cases like these wetware circuits where, of course, we don't have infinite wetware boards, since these only come from the stem cells, which only come from microminers. Well, the dragon eggs do anyway. So for the time being, these are not infinite. We have to send microminers for these, so I've set a level limiter. Ideally, I would level limit this assembling machine, but I couldn't really find a neat way of doing that, since we have to have both fluid and item inputs on the sides. And then, of course, one side has to be power. So I tried level limiting through this drawer and putting a controller on the bottom here, but it didn't accept the redstone through the drawer. So I settled for the next best thing, which was to level limit the wire mill, so that this no longer produces wires, and this will be starved of wires in that case. And then I've also moved over Night Slime and the rhodochrosite processing. Basically, this room here is just going to be for all of the miscellaneous gregtech processes. And in order to make Night Slime, you need slime blocks, which requires crafting. So I set up crafting on this side for easy expansion. And the way this works is we're going to have interfaces touching mechanical crafters, which go into drawers. So like here, for example, we're making slime. So we input slime balls from our ME system. Then we import the recipe into the autocrafter. This will craft into the slime balls. And then I have just item conduits extracting from these mechanical crafters into a drawer controller. And this is all exposed to the ME network via storage bus. And it's just the exact same all the way around. I know that we're going to probably need at least double this, maybe even triple this. So I was considering maybe adding another line in front. Or we just expand this vertically. I haven't quite decided on that yet. But yeah, all of this will also need facades on the cables as well. And we'll make it all nice and neat once the row is set up. I'll tidy it all up. But I'm just going to set up these last two circuit ones. So we need what fluid was it again? Solder and alloy. And now that we have all the infrastructure here, it's so easy to set things like this up. So we get a pump on each one, screwdriver that for import, and then we just hook it all up, and that's it. So yeah, that's that one done for refined circuits. Now just to do this one as well. I also have been adding to the fluid solidifier wall as well. So I was about to move over all of the empowered stuff, and then I realised that you could actually fluid solidify that, so that is really, really nice. It means you don't have to mess with the combination crafting or anything for crafting these empowered blocks. This recipe here, so it means that we don't need any of these cells anymore. We don't need to mess with these gems. This is awesome. I thought I would have to do a whole, extend this whole setup for these empowered blocks, because these are used quite a lot, but now that we're going to have just basically full drawers of these, it's really nice. And I also decided to do this the same for rotors. I was going to move the on-demand setup that we had on, I think it was the LUV line, but I just decided, you know what, we've got all these fluid solidifiers here, why not just tank it and fluid solidify each rotor that we need? And I haven't bothered to upgrade these drawers, we're just keeping 2,000 of each, which is plenty. Yeah, there's some other things I've added up here, like the portable tank fluid solidifier here, draconium plates, gallium, europium, obsidian. There's a bunch of different stuff that I've just run into and added to the wall. I've also made a few wires here. This is for the higher tier of circuits, so like the tier 5s and 6. Those need fine wires, which are a two-step process. So I just decided the first step would go here, just to save stacking the machines too high down there. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but that's just kind of the way I decided to do it. And there's one more thing I forgot to mention. I think I said earlier on, for this cutting machine processing array, that I would have to have 2 import buses. And instead of doing that, I've just put another chest with this middle block here is not an input bus, it's just a regular machine casing, and then I just have this chest importing into this chest using a conveyor, and that allows an extra 3 sides access for interfaces. And in theory we can even stack another chest on top of this one and then have another 4 faces and just import into all the different chests, and eventually it'll get put into the input bus. And it's not really a big deal for something like the cutting machine, because there's not going to be any recipe overlaps or anything like that. So that's quite a good solution for that. So yeah, I've just been going through here, trying to just pick out things to move across to the new part of the base. I'm going to have to do all these system on chips, or crystal chips, and all of that. We're going to have to find a place for blast furnaces as well, because we do still need a handful of these. I'm not sure if I want to have a separate room for that. Maybe I'll have another room through here for blast furnaces and things like the vacuum freezer for superconducting wires. That'll have to find a home as well. Maybe I'll even put it on top of these. Oh, looks like I forgot to lock a drawer here. This was supposed to be for lava crystals. I was wondering why there was TBU fuel up here. So yeah, we're almost done with all of the base designs. I still have to obviously tidy up this room, but I'm only going to do that once all the functionality is put in. And then we still have to set up the assembly line room, and then we can move on to passive and micro miners. I mean, a lot of the stuff is going to already be done. Like, for example, we already have circuits, so we don't have to do the circuits. And now that we're fluid solidifying the empowered stuff, I was able to take down the passive crafting of, I think it was void crystals I was doing here before. I don't really know why I was only passive in void crystals, but yeah, that's gone now. And it means I can also take down this on-demand setup for the empowered blocks. So all of this can be taken out. Feels good being able to get rid of old systems like this. Now it's much cleaner and it's in its final place. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. These aren't empowered blocks, are they? These are just regular blocks, so actually we do still need these. Well, mistakes were made there. Yeah, because we need these non-empowered versions for some of the things like the emeradic, well, maybe not the emeradic crystals, but things like Restonia, we do still need the unempowered version. And I don't think we can just fluid solidify this version here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to set that back up, I think. But it would have had to get moved anyway, so oh well. Mistakes were made. So I think maybe to finish off today, since we've been doing so much tech stuff, I think we should maybe finish off with some more building, just to keep it a bit more interesting. So I want to also design a room for RF consuming machines. So that will be things like that empowered setup I just took down. Things like the soul binders, maybe even a place for 82 passive processor crafting. So like all of these processors here, I want to have these passively stocked. I'll need a place for this red coal as well. By the way, I've been building up this red coal right from the beginning of the game because you need like 1 million or something crazy like that. So it's for all these Impinium cores, which are eventually used in the creative energy source. And this is insane, like you need multiple of these energy sources for vending, and this needs a lot of red coal, so I'm glad I have this. I mean, we're at 269,000, but we still need a lot more than that, so this is going to have to find a home as well. Although this technically doesn't require RF power, it just requires grid power. But all of this can live in the same space. Like also these compactors and things like that, they can also live in the same room. So the question is though, where do we want to put that? We have a few different options. We can expand this corridor out a little bit and maybe put it next to our fluid solidifiers. Or we could have it in this same room as the processing arrays and just have it on this side of the building. Another option is to have it behind the crafters or even next to our DML setup. Yeah, I think we will put it next to our fluid solidifier room, and I'll put it in a room that's off to the side here. Maybe I'll have this a bit of a thinner room as well. Instead of 2 chunks wide, I think I might just have it the 1 chunk wide. And we can design it a bit different, just to have a bit of variety. So I actually had this really cool idea. Maybe maybe instead of like having a full length corridor, we split it in half, and this goes upstairs into a room for the RF machines, and over here, I'll move this floor up to this level here, I think, and then we'll have this room or this staircase here go down and connect eventually up with that area over there, and all of this underneath section is going to be assembly lines. And we'll just do this just for a bit of variation, just so it's not all the same corridor everywhere. And I think this is going to look really cool. I've got like an idea of how it'll look in my head. I'm not sure if it'll turn out exactly, but yeah. Let's just start placing blocks. Sometimes that's the best way just to get started. Just start placing things and it'll work itself out. So yeah, I'm going to do a bunch of building here and then we'll finish it off here for today. I'm not sure how much I'll be able to get done, as I'm kind of running out of time to play. And I would like to get this episode out today. But yeah, I'll come back and give a bit of an update before I finish off for today. Alright, and there we have it, our new room for the RF machines. I managed to finish off all the walls, and I think this turned out really good. I'm not sure about the exterior of this whole base. The exterior is probably something I'll do last, and touch up all of the outsides. But for now I'm just focusing on the insides of the buildings. But yeah, try to follow the theme and the pattern I've got going on so far. And I think it turned out really good actually. Probably in between episodes I'll start populating this with that setup I just took downstairs, and a couple of the other, like the soul binder, things like that as well. That's all going to go in here. But yeah, again, I'm happy with the progress we've made today. I've got a lot more stuff to do in between episodes that we've already done, like moving all this stuff. So I'll probably do a bit more of that. However, that's about all the time we have for today. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for some more Omnifactory.